NutriCast.
Everything I did, and I think this is such a key point, was through a value creation lens. Doing this to create value, not just to do it because everybody else is doing it. I mean, think about culture exercises in most companies. We should have a culture here. Who's the expert on culture? Let's come in and have them meet with us. Put the brakes on that.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler. Today's episode features Lee Benson, who rose from a tumultuous early life to transform a small business into a 9-figure success story. We'll dive into his innovative most important number methodology, which garnered praise from Jack Welch, and explore how he instills holistic value creation in every venture. Plus, hear about Lee's incredible experiences in animal rescue and how he's expanding his legacy beyond business. You won't want to miss this fascinating conversation packed with insights for every entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Hey, Lee, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How are you doing today?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So just a little backstory before I ask you a couple questions and get into the show. You've got just such a wonderful story. You've taken a business from pretty much the ground up to 500 employees, 9-figure business, and ultimately exited, which is pretty exciting. So I'd love to start out with, if you could tell us a little bit about you, both on a professional level and then also on a personal level.
Yeah, personally, I like to say, and it's totally true, I got started on this value creation journey at 6 years old when a neighbor unsolicited asked me, hey, would you pull weeds in my garden for 25 cents an hour? I'm in my 60s, so back then that was actually a good amount of money. And I could trust that. Didn't have the healthiest home environment. It was toxic and in some ways quite dangerous, family members in and out of prison, et cetera. But I could trust this outside world, and that turned into shoveling snow and paper routes. And music has always been a big part of my life. And in the 80s, I played over 1,000 nights on stages. It's how I earned most of my money back then, playing in a band. In fact, I formed a band earlier this year. We just finished all the recording for an album that we're going to release in a couple of months. So it's still a power hobby for me. I count that as one of my first businesses, but it really was a business. But now going through today, I've started 8 businesses from scratch. And the one you're talking about was the biggest one, started with 3 employees. Looking forward to kind of digging into that journey with you. After 23 years, hey, you had a 9-figure exit and a 21.6x multiple because of how we ran it, how we thought about it. The strategic buyer that, with the right strategic buyer, you can get a significantly higher multiple. But for them, because of their channels they can leverage, within a couple of years, it's like they paid maybe 3 or 4x for the business. So there's so much that we discovered going through that process. Just incredible.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
So there's so much that we discovered going through that process. Just incredible.
Wow. 26 multiple? Did I hear that right? That's crazy.
21.6x.
21.6. Sorry. Wow. That's still a crazy multiple.
It was, well into 9 figures. I can't say the number because we agreed that we would talk about what that sell price was. But yeah, an amazing journey. And Tyler, an equally good, and I was thinking at the time, it's probably a better option for me would have been just to keep the business. Because I love operating. Like I want to be on the front lines, creating value in the real world with real customers and just doing all of the hard work to continually improve that. And it seems like today, and I'd love to get your take on it, so many folks are, what can we build quickly and make as much money as we can and sell it and get out of this thing? I don't even like hanging out with those people. I want folks that want to operate and be in the real world doing some cool stuff.
I love that whole concept of actually doing it. I think, I don't want to get too much on the soapbox here, but I think we've kind of strayed from people that actually done stuff to people that just say they can do stuff. I see that so much, especially in the world of social media, that it's nice to see people actually do stuff and then leverage off of their experience of whether it be success or maybe some hard knocks. I do have one question on this whole value creation thing. Can you define that for the folks that are out there? Like, what do you consider value creation and why? I mean, what makes it so important?
Yeah, most of the time when I hear people say add value, value creation, that kind of stuff, if it's in the business world, it's just pure business virtue signaling. Like it sounds good, so let's keep saying it. But for me, it's really meaty and there's three parts to it. So when I think about value creation, I think about holistic value creation. So there's material value creation, there's emotional energy value creation, which is the X factor for leaders. I think it's the scarcest commodity on the planet, i.e., positive emotional energy, supercharges everything else we do. And then there's spiritual value creation. And spiritual at its core is about connectedness. And that means something different to everybody. But hey, let's start with, let's say, our team members, but it's really a family, it's everyone. But for our team members in our companies, how connected to themselves are they, right? Do they understand how they make decisions, what makes them tick, what their value creation superpowers are? They aligned with that in the work that they're doing? And then what about things that we're doing to get them connected to the team members in the organization, our customers, suppliers, other communities that we're interacting with? So I believe the reason I've always gotten 2 to 3 times the multiples that strong companies in each space where I've had an exit have gotten is because I've approached it, and I've gotten way better at articulating this and how I think about it and apply it. But I've always approached it in a holistic way. We need to cultivate material value creation, because I think the job of every one of our listeners that's leading a company as founder or CEO is to continually and responsibly increase the value of their business. That's their job. That's what they should be doing. So how do you cultivate that? And that one number at the top of the business that reflects the value of the business is usually going to be some version of profit. Could be EBITDA, could be cash flow if it's capital intensive. And it should reflect the value of the business and drive the majority of the right behaviors. And then, sort of cascade that all the way through. And then what are we intentionally doing to improve the positive emotional energy in the organization? I've always thought deeply about leadership development and how we're doing that. And then the connectedness piece. So this holistic approach to value creation, it just feels better. Like it feels better. It's better all the way around. And I think we all should keep it in balance for ourselves. And that can be nuanced to quite different for each of us. But I believe that's why the multiples were so much material value was created, because this other stuff was done in balance. How does that land on you?
Yeah, that's really good stuff. If I could bring this to life a little bit more, going through your 9-figure exit at Able Aerospace, can you kind of bring that to life for me in terms of like some things that you did that was conscious of that value creation that you actually applied within that organization that paid off?
Yeah, 100%. So do you want to hear a little bit about the journey and some lessons learned, or do you want to hear examples midpoint on around how I intentionally cultivated value creation?
I'd love to hear the journey. So, Lee, one thing about me, I tend to jump around a lot because I get so excited when I'm talking to someone like you. So I apologize in advance. I love to hear the meat of everything, but then I pass by the story. So let's go with the story first. I'd love to kind of hear your journey, and then we can build off of that.
Yeah. So, and just a little bit more on the backstory, it came from a super low income family.
Yeah.
All this was built from scratch. And I was kicked out of the house at the beginning of my senior year in high school, put myself through my senior year. I was working as a cook. I had my own apartment. So I'm figuring all this stuff out. And it was good for me because I started that value creation journey so early. I just kept moving. I never felt like a victim. I just did this. I thought after I was out, I was like, man, I wish I would have done this a year earlier, because I'm on this track and I'm going for it. So this isn't something that was ever handed to me or anything else. So fast forward, we're in the 80s. I'm playing in bands. During the day to earn extra money, I'm working as an electroplating operator inside this really small mom and pop electroplating shop. And then somebody comes along and buys it, and then we're moving along, and we had really one customer that was 90% of our business, and our best year ever was only $1 million in sales. And that one customer came to my sales guy, one of the purchasing agents, and said, hey, I want an all expense paid trip to Las Vegas whenever I want it. If you don't give it to me, I'm going to take all the work that's in your shop and put it somewhere else. Of course, I said, no, that's a slippery slope that none of us should be ever going down. and talked to my boss about it, the owner of this company. And I had some equity in it too. I had about 15%, I think, at that time. And he said no. And then it took them about 6 months, but they figured out how to do it. And they did it by recruiting one of our team members. So we lost 90+% of our business overnight. My boss said, close it to sell it. You've got 30 days. I couldn't find anybody to buy it. And I went back to him and I said, look, I want to go this direction, which was really simple. We were electroplating parts that would go into an aircraft engine or on an aircraft. We might charge $300 at the very top end for our services. They would inspect it, maybe do some additional machining and sell it for $10,000 to their customer. And my idea was, hey, let's go direct to the aircraft operators. Let's figure out how to do that. Wasn't sure how to do it, but let's figure it out. And we can charge $5,000. We can outsource everything that we don't have, and there'll still be plenty of gross profit to cover this. And when there's enough being outsourced to justify it, we'll bring in that process, a machine or whatever it happens to be. And he said, you don't know what you're talking about. It'll never work. But if you'll assume the debt, which was $400,000 in paper management fee debt to the owner and about $200,000 in creditor debt, and I put my house up as collateral, I'll let you do it. And so that's what I did. And so there was myself and two other gentlemen who rode the whole journey over the 23 years, and they did really well in the exit. Love those guys, still stay in touch with them. The first year, we did $360,000 in sales, and I lost count of how many times I thought we're probably going to go out of business, but I would never give up in that first year. And our capital equipment budget was $175. We bought all these shelves to put work on, and this is so cool. And then the next year it jumped to just under 800,000. Then it jumped to just over or just under 2 million. And then it just started going. And there's all these lessons that we're learning along the way. Never had to take $1 of outside investment capital to come in, not even $1. And we were a super capital intensive business. So imagine aerospace and all the equipment to do the work. We did 95+% of everything in house. Totally unusual for a repair and overhaul center like we turned into. But I was super diligent around whatever profit we make, we'll distribute an amount of money. Usually it was about 50 to 60% of the total to cover taxes and a little bit extra. I own the majority of the stock. Actually, I controlled all of it. Anybody else that had ownership, they worked in the company and they earned it. And I had criteria for that. And if they left for any reason whatsoever or no reason at all, they had to sell it back at a preset price. So I controlled all the stock, and that's how I handled it. But we would distribute, let's say, 50 to 60%, depending on what's going on. And the rest of it, we always kept in the business to keep investing and growing. And that's how we ended up with tens of millions of dollars in parts sitting on the shelf, more than that in equipment that we owned inside the building, because we were super disciplined around this process. It was never, oh, how much do we make and let's decide what to do with it. Nope, it was formulaic, like zero emotional energy dealing with what are we going to do with the profits, that are going on. And I loved it. And it was probably 8 years before I was the highest paid. And even at the end of my salary, $100 million, very profitable business. I could totally see $500 million, without anybody buying us in sales. And it was probably 8 years before I was the highest paid, and not by much. And at the end, my salary, I think, was just over $300,000. But the majority of what I made, millions of dollars a year, was from, the profits of the company. So I always did. And this was my mindset. Like, where did it come from? I don't know. It was just inside me. I'm always going to do what's best for the entity, and that will ultimately be what's best for me. And I need to create the rules of engagement, the structure of the organization, the incentive in a way for all the team members that it just worked. And the more value they collectively created, the more material value they could actually get out of the situation. So I said a lot there, but a wild journey, figured so much stuff out along the way. So much fun.
Yeah, there's just so much to unpack there. So let's go back to like that first year where it sounded like you said there were multiple times where the viability of the business was in question. What gave you the conviction? I think you said $400,000 and $200,000 was $600,000. I think you said in your first year was what you were basically, and you were securing some of that against your home. What gave you the conviction that you could turn the corner? Because you really only had one major customer prior to that who turned around and kind of burned you. And What made you feel like, hey, this is worth putting $600,000 on, and I think I can get around a curve? Like, what did you see that maybe others didn't?
Well, two things. One, some folks need to see a whole bunch of data to plot any kind of, see a trend, to forecast anything.
Yeah.
I have the idea of a dot and I can have a whole plotted thing going off into the future. So I could connect dots really well. And I just see this working. There's going to be a lot of hard work. There's a lot of stuff left to figure it out. I've never become an FAA repair station before and done all of that, but I'm going to have to figure out how to do it. But I could connect the dots. I could see the path. I just had to solve for these things I'd never done before. And so the second part of it is that I learned early on to trust the struggle. I think of it as this value creation struggle cycle. So I identified capability I would like. I struggled to get that capability. It elevates self-esteem and confidence, which we all like that when that happens. Me too. And don't stop there. Use it to create value. And then I just keep going around that wheel. So learning to trust the struggle, and the harder it gets, I get this feeling inside like, wow, this is going to be amazing. We're going to come out the other side, because it always is. That gave me the confidence to do it. I always believe there's a better way to create value than I'm seeing today. And it's my job to find it. And I just keep looking for it and going after it. So I just never thought I would fail. We get right to the edge financially, and boy, do you get smarter with your decision making. I see so many people that get a lot of money invested in their business and the dumbest decisions ever, millions to tens of millions of dollars wasted because they're playing this game. They're not really doing it. So having fewer resources makes us way smarter. And I can get into four things and how I think about aligning to them to make sure we make really smart decisions and take smart actions if you want. But that's a huge part of what I learned going through this.
Yeah. And I think you call that, is it mind concept? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I developed an operating methodology called the MIND methodology, which stands for most important number and drivers. But any operating systems, because a lot of people out there will say, oh, we use EOS, or we use 40X, or we use scaling up, or whatever that happens to be, OKRs. Why is it that some will say, oh, this changed our world and it's so amazing? And more will say for each of those operating systems that it didn't work or worse. So what's the difference as they're going through it? And so as I was building this business and the other companies, what's something that will work? Because traditional goal setting, I've never seen it stand the test of time. I've never seen anybody prove me wrong on that. I go into any business of any size, startup, small, medium. My biggest company I've worked with in the last year, $60 billion market cap. I look at the goals. They're just not very thoughtful. So I don't think that works. And so here's the first piece, and then dig in whatever questions you have. So the MIND methodology, imagine this. You've got one number at the top that's a reflection of the most important number for the organization as a whole, a reflection of the value of the business, and it drives the majority of the right behaviors. It's the CEO's job, the founder's job, to continually responsibly increase that value. So by proxy, the leadership team, that's their job. Now imagine every department or function or team in the business. So you've got the structure of all these different functions to be able to work well together to create that value at the top. What's their most important number? That's a reflection of the value they were designed to create and will drive the majority of the right behavior. So you pick the wrong number and you win on the number, but you go down and you don't create the value because you picked the wrong number. So it's got to drive the right behaviors. But when they all have that, and when theirs improves, it improves the next one up. It drives cross-functional collaboration, and you can cascade this all the way out, whether you're, one team, 5 teams, 10 teams, 100 teams, it doesn't matter. I even had Jack Welch tell me, the previous CEO of General Electric, and he became a really good friend and a business partner in one of my businesses with me before he passed, tell me this was the best business management system he'd ever seen. And had he had it at General Electric back when he was running it, all 400,000 team members would be in this. Because now you've got this elegant view of, are we winning or losing at the top? Here's the most important number. Here's where we started. Here's where we're going. Here's where we're at, on track, at risk, behind, or behind at any point in time. Same with everybody else. So I can see red, green, or yellow everywhere. I know exactly where to go. But any team I go to, I can see that number. I can see all the other things they're measuring, and they better be measuring it with the intent of making better decisions to improve the value they're creating. And then my only question is, what's the best work that you guys and gals are doing to create more value and improve this number? It's so simple, so elegant, and it catches fire on its own. I'm super disciplined Tyler, I can make just about anything work and stay on top of it. That's not most leaders. They're just not. They back off it all and goal setting and everything comes crashing down. So I wanted something that I didn't have to stay in the middle of constantly and that anybody else could apply it and it just works. Even just changing the language a little bit makes a big difference in the results of companies. I get notes from around the world all the time on that. So that was the first piece. So here's this operating methodology. How is your team designed to create value? How do I know I can see this most important number plan? And then show me the best work you're doing. What are you talking about in meetings? How are you making decisions? What are the actions that you're taking? What are the things that you're leveraging? When I use the word driver, it's a category of work that's evergreen that a team should be really good at leveraging to improve their most important number. And there's no end to how well you can leverage it. So that's simple and elegant. And it just works. It's so easy. Everybody gets a voice instantly and it's transparent. I mean, just so many cool things come out of it. So go for it.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber Teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot. To their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom? This is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber Teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
So there's so much that we discovered going through that process. Just incredible.
Yeah, I want to dig a little bit, but I want to actually summarize a couple things too that I've already taken away from just a lot of wisdom you shared. One, I love the saying, trust the struggle. I think that's really cool. I don't think I've ever heard it articulated that way. You seem like you're really calm under pressure in terms of when kind of things aren't going right. You're able to just really realize, hey, this is a struggle. I think this is where a lot of times just as entrepreneurs, the wheels can fall off because when things get a little difficult, we don't have that mindset that, hey, we got to trust the struggle. We're going in the right direction and good things are at the end of the road. So I think that was really cool that I took away. And then the other thing that echoed your discipline, your methodology for, I guess I'd call it cash flow management to some degree, where you would just earmark your earnings at the end of the year and go, okay, this amount's going back into the business. This is going here. This is going here. I think that's another area where I oftentimes see entrepreneurs, they don't have that discipline and they end up, maybe they have a really good year and all the money goes out the door. And then the next year, maybe it's not so good. And then they're like, oh, I need to back into a credit line to make up for now that I don't have the money to cover it. And they've got this hole and it either causes them not to grow as fast or not grow at all, or in a worst case, maybe even go out of business. So those were like two, I mean, there are more than that, but two key takeaways. Now, going back to this whole methodology, this mind methodology and the first component of it, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So the CEO, the entrepreneur, the business owner has this value creation number, right? And then, am I understanding you correctly? As it goes down each layer of team, we'll call it, they have their own most important number for their group that then they need to break down to how do they get to that for that group. And it all works in sync so that each layer is basically working up to get to ultimately that value creation number that's at the top. Am I saying it okay?
Yeah, and the number at the top is a reflection of the value of the business, the value of the business, right? So If we're continually and responsibly improving that number, it's not saying all we care about is money. If you don't get the people side right, you don't get the connectedness, the emotional energy, all that stuff right, the customer experience right, that can't continually and responsibly go up over time. It just can't. But every team should be designed in a way to create value. And like a great question for all the listeners here would be, ask any one of your leaders or really any of your non-supervisory team members as well, how do you create value for the organization, and see what kind of an answer you get. In this system, this mind methodology, which I outline in my book titled Your Most Important Number, you can learn a lot about it, lots of free resources at our website, etw.com. In this one, when you ask a leader, they say, "Oh, here's my team. This is what we do. This is our most important number. This is why it drives the majority of the right behaviors. Here's some additional things we're measuring to help us make better decisions to improve it. And this is the best work that we're doing to improve that." That's a leader, and that's a pretty darn good answer, right? And you can see it objectively. You ask a non-supervisory team member, "Hey, I'm on this team. This is our most important number. This is my role. Here are 2 or 3 outcome-based responsibilities that I measured on, and here's the best work I'm doing with the team and doing my part to help us achieve our most important number." Because every team, all these most important numbers will work together and create the value that this company's designed to create. That's a pretty damn good answer.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So so you said that's the first component. Can we kind of walk through, I think you said there's a total of 4 components. What's the second component in that?
So that's the first category. And then, so the second category has 4 components. I'll go super quick on it. The reason that companies will put an operating system in place and it works for some and doesn't work for others, and in some cases destroys the culture and even the company, is because they've made process more important than what is most important. One of the most common ones I hear is the EOS operating methodology. You need to do the level 10 this way. We've got the parking lot for this stuff and so many minutes here. You can't do this. You're the integrator. This person needs to be the visionary. And they're like running around doing what they think they're supposed to do. Now they've made process more important than what's most important. And what's most important is creating more and more value as an organization. And all the pieces have to go in there. And even with the mind methodology, anything you could just get caught up in, did I do it right? And so the nudging that I do as the top leader is around business model. It's around the actual value of the products and services we have. It's around strategy, and it's around culture. So in the business model, super simple. How do we price? What are all the expenses? Revenue at the top, all the expenses, the structure, approaches, everything that goes into that, profit. And then the really exciting part, the potential for future profit. And when leaders are making decisions or taking actions that aren't in alignment with that business model, I'm nudging them back in. They all need to understand how we make money. And it's wild how few do. It's crazy. I mean, like it's an epidemic. It's crazy. But we assume at the top, the leaders, that everybody just gets it. They connect the dots. So no, they don't. And then the actual value of our products and services. So what do our customers really think of what we have? Like really think, and are we connected to it relative to our job, so we understand exactly how we impact it, and we have a process for continually and responsibly improving that. Always like connected, because most companies seem to love their stuff more than their customers do, to a large degree. So connected there and improving. And then strategy, to me, like the simplest way to think about it is approaches to increasing the value of the business. Like if the listeners get nothing else out of this when they do strategy, it's not let's do some stuff to improve. Like continuous improvement should be an ongoing effort. That's not strategy. You just need to make sure that everybody's doing it. But strategy would be, hey, if we implement this thing or do whatever, it'll give us a step change in our ability to increase the value of the business. So that's fantastic. And then, so nudging around those 3, whenever you see things not fully in line with it, the best work I think we can do as leaders at the top is to nudge the other leaders to be more in alignment with those 3 things. And we know we've won when they start nudging others downstream. Fantastic. And then you have more uncovered capacity. You're having to come in and solve problems way less, put out fires, whatever it is. And then culture, I talk about it in my book a lot about connecting culture to financial results and creating value. But culture is just really simply the attitudes and behaviors that cause the most value to be created. I mean, that's all it is. So if you intentionally distill those things out inside your organization, and are you nudging everybody, and do you have it as part of your operating methodology to ensure everybody's aligned to it, they're trained on it, you're hiring for it, and you're making it real, not just wallpaper around there. So you can have an operating methodology, and every company does, intentional or unintentional, very organized or completely disorganized, but it is a method. Now, how well does everybody understand the business model, the actual value that the market sees in your products and services, their part in strategy? And that's a whole other conversation. And then culture. Let's bring this thing to life. And there's no end to where this can go. Like, there's literally no end.
How did you form it sounds like you formed this at the company that you sold, the 9-figure exit. Is this where you formed this methodology, or was it before that?
Oh yeah, yeah, and again, I'm on my 8th company. I've started from scratch. I've worked with hundreds of companies, thousands of leaders. I have a team that helps companies implement this stuff. Although in my book, Your Most Important Number, the last chapter is the DIY chapter, which you probably remember. And I just love getting notes from folks around the world. We just changed the language a little bit, and now, like a founder of a company will say, I get ready to do something, and my team is asking me, well, what does that have to do with our most important number? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. and the results change as a result of that. Yeah, in a good way.
That is awesome. That is cool. Hey, I want to dig a little bit more into this whole emotional energy that you talk about. Like, what does that mean? Is that culture, or is it deeper than that? Or what does it mean exactly?
Well, increasing positive emotional energy, in the context of an organization, this is about the engagement we're looking for. I don't want to have a survey that goes out, are you engaged or not? And we ask the 12 Gallup questions. My question always comes back to engaged with what? And so positive emotional energy elevates engagement big time, and engagement with the value they were hired to create. That's it. And so I want to see that they're digging into their team's most important numbers, the outcomes that they're held accountable to, just more engaged around it. And most companies that I come across, they don't really have a definition of what it means to be a leader in their organization. So a simple one that I love, that's I believe quite universal, is leaders in this organization, your organization, they get results, and they foster an environment where every team member is intrinsically motivated and empowered to create more and more value over time. That's it. That's your job. So at the aerospace company, one of the things I learned there, to keep that case study going a little bit, is early on, around 150 employees, my gosh, why are these 3 leaders getting great results consistently, and those 2 over there just not, and those just middle of the road? What's going on here? So I came up with 3 categories in how I evaluated it. It was how you showed up, which is what we're talking about here, right? Your traits, your characteristics, your consistency, how you build trust, all of that, how you show up as a leader. So we got that, leadership traits. And then there was foundational readiness. We were growing quickly. So when I look at a leader in their team, their department, are you ready to take a 20% jump in work going through there? Like, are you foundationally ready to grow? So I would list a whole bunch of categories in there. And I think there was no more than 8 in each of these. And then the last one was management operating system. So what are the cadences, the rituals, the standard things that you do, what you measure, how often you update, all of that cause extraordinary results to happen. So what I did at that time is I took all the leaders, and I had this little matrix. And so we have the 3 categories, the sub-elements of each one of the 3, and then all the leaders along the top. And you go down the matrix, and it was red, green, or yellow for all of them. And I put this big billboard up, poster in the back. Everybody could see every leader and who was red, green, or yellow. And lo and behold, the ones that got the best results were way more green, and the ones that got the worst were red, and the others were a lot of yellow. And within 2 months, almost everybody was green across the board, because now I told them exactly what we were looking for, and they could get their heads around why it worked and didn't work with different leaders. Like, it was fantastic. It was like having a skills matrix for mechanics on the floor. What work can you do? Yes or no. And what work can you train others to do? Now this is a skills matrix for leaders. And I talk about that in the book too. You probably remember that as well.
Yeah. Hey, Lee, feel free to tell me I'm oversimplifying here. I tend to do that. But don't you think half the battle is just being visible? Like, when you talk about having this matrix and bringing awareness to your team that some are in the green and then the ones in the yellow and red and maybe aren't where they need to be at, the visibility is half that battle of bringing awareness to it. Do you agree with that, or is that an oversimplification?
Well, you can never oversimplify. I think simplification is where the brilliance is. So 100%, a lot of companies don't have a culture of being transparent around that stuff.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I would pull all the leaders in. When I sold the company, I had 64 leaders, and I would do an organizational trust survey right there at the table. Hey, let's look at Bob here on a scale from 1 to 5. 5 is you can trust them to do what they said they're going to do 100% of the time. They're the ones you count on. 1 is you just can't. And it was wild. Yeah, Bob gets a 1. Susan gets a 3, and it just went around the table. Talk about potentially being uncomfortable, but how we set things up is important. I'm not setting out to make people uncomfortable. It's if we all do what we say we're going to do, because everybody else around here relies on it to some degree, we'll win at a higher level. And we want to make sure that we're doing that, because most, when they don't do what they said they're going to do, it wasn't because they wanted to intentionally harm another team member. It's because they made a choice that this is more important. I'm going to do that than this, not realizing that the downstream of not doing it costs the organization more than what they got of making that choice. So these are just open, transparent. You're 100% right. I'm a huge fan of transparency. Let's show everybody everything. And you all have your part in this value creation machine. This is your mechanism, your gear, your lever, whatever the heck it is. But we all have our job to do to create this. And the more we can see all of that and help each other do better, reach out when we need help, whatever that is, how could you not create value faster? But I don't, tell me what your experience is, Tyler. Most leaders are just super uncomfortable being transparent.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit, I'll share my feeling on this. I think sometimes it's just lack of awareness to be that way. It's a little bit of uncomfortableness. I, especially in, my arena is more like the small business world, where oftentimes I'm working with the entrepreneur or the business owner, and they have small leadership teams. I think it's just lack of training, lack of awareness. And so can I really say that, or should I be saying that? And I think that causes sometimes that lack of transparency, to your point. Like, I love the model of just being really open and clear to your staff and your team and everybody, like that value creation where everybody has ownership of a certain number or a certain goal or a certain objective, I should say. I shouldn't say a goal, because I know those, we've decided those are failures. It creates ownership. It makes people feel like they own something, and then they're a part of that overall top core number of where they want to be at. So I think, I will attribute that it's lack of transparency and just lack of good, clear communication. And it may be because of training. It may be because sometimes in smaller businesses, their training and their awareness just isn't there as much as sometimes as organizations. I don't know. I'd be curious, as you went from, like a 3-person company to a 500-person company, how did you do that? You must have had to form, I'm assuming, a really good leadership team, and then you had your system to go along with that. But I think that's the difference between how you handle that growth.
Everything I did, and I think this is such a key point, was through a value creation lens. Doing this to create value, not just to do it because everybody else is doing it. Think about culture exercises in most companies. We should have a culture here. Who's the expert on culture? Let's come in and have them meet with us. Put the brakes on that. How are you going to connect culture to increasing the value of the business? Like, how will you do it? If not, it's just an exercise, and it's wasting time. So I think a lot don't understand it, but if nothing else, as you do anything in the organization, it should be with the intent of increasing the value of the business in whatever area that is, customer experience, et cetera. And you should be able to think through and quantify that. Not all ideas work out the way you want, but it should be done with that intent. And then you don't go through these exercises. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. How do you think people respond, employees in particular, when you introduce this and go, hey, what are you doing that's creating value today, type of thing? Because I think that question's huge, and it's one that's rarely asked, which should be. But does that sometimes rub people wrong or not? It just take a while for people to warm up to that and see it in that lens?
Well, it's an interesting question to ask for listeners that have the top leadership spot, just to get a take on it. But no way should we put people on the spot looking for an answer that we've never told them about. Like, so many team members get let go because they didn't do what we didn't tell them they should have done, that we didn't even know they should have done, but we realized it after it wasn't done, and so they're gone. How ridiculous is that, right?
Yeah.
We go out and say, look, here's how we create value as an organization. Our goal is to grow, 20%, 50%, 100%, whatever it is over the next couple of years in valuation. This is a giant value creation machine, and every team is designed to create value. So we're going to go through this exercise where all of you are going to come up with your teams or your department or your function's most important number, the categories or drivers of work that you can leverage to continually improve that, increase, the value that you create as a team. So this is how you do it. So imagine after, 6 months, a year going through this, and we're talking about it, this is customer service, or this is marketing, or this is operations. This is how they create value for the organization. Now, when you ask them, how do you create value? And they're stumbling a little bit, well, you can nudge them. Well, here's your team, right? And here's your most important number. What's the best work you're doing to improve that? Like, we're bringing them along. It only took me, this is my 40-year overnight success story, a couple of decades firmly into this. Let's give them at least a couple of months to get their head around it, right? So our job is to develop them into these value creation machines. And it's how we set all this stuff up as we go through, right? There is an order to things, and I think there's value in being thrown into the frying pan with no experience. Like, it's good to experience all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
And I think there's value in being thrown into the frying pan with no experience. Like, it's good to experience all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, I love that. Hey, one thing before wrapping up, I want to make sure I get your thoughts on. Oftentimes from my audience, I get people that are struggling entrepreneurs. They've either hit a wall or in terms of growth, they can't get past that $10 million number, or maybe it's $1 million number, whatever it happens to be. They're having challenges sometimes with retaining staff, and they're struggling. What are your thoughts around, for the people out in the audience? Like, what can you kind of give some words of wisdom? You've had a lot of success of overcoming those struggles, things that they should be focusing on. Anything around words of wisdom like that?
It's so hard to give a universal answer because every sticking point's going to be a little bit different. But what I will say, and again, I shared it earlier, there's always a way, especially if we haven't thought of it ourselves, but there's always a way to create value faster, more, all of it. And it's your job to find it and learn to trust the struggle. And I'm not saying anybody's doing this, but I've seen a lot of it. Don't pick up a victim mindset around this. Like, when things get hard, this is your healthy struggle to figure out how to create more value. And don't do what I did early on and reinvent the wheel every other week. There's so many places you can go to get help. I personally, just to stay in the front lines with more and more companies, I personally execute mastermind groups. I've got 3 full groups of 8 that I run. And all of these folks, every 2 months, we do a deep diver in their business, and we're keeping each one of the leaders at that critical place they need to be at every point in time to increase responsibly the value of their business over time. Totally different format than Vistage and EO and YPO and all the others. The accountability, the camaraderie, the approach to holistic value creation, everything we do there, even to the point where we metaphorically look at each other as, this is a conglomerate. We've all invested over half our money in the conglomerate. We want to make sure we have a good lifestyle in retirement. So we own the results when we're in there. Last year with my groups, the lowest increase in valuation, I think, was 38%. The highest was 1,100%. Went from, it was crazy, 1.7, to into the $40 million range. It was crazy cool what happened. But this approach, this way of thinking about it through the value creation lens, everything we do, find some folks that can, you can build your own little group and kind of talk about that. Or go to my website, look at etw.com, look at Execute Masterminds, join one of the masterminds. I've got chairs certified with their own groups. I might even start a new group at the end of this year and have 4 groups. I just love it. Like, if I wasn't being paid to do anything, this is what I would do. I'd like being on the front lines, creating value with real businesses, with leaders that want to do that.
That's so cool. Hey, I did read your book, The most important number. Great book. You have a great way of synthesizing these concepts so they're digestible, they're easy to understand. Really good book. I encourage people to check it out. Your website you just mentioned, but I'll say it again and I'll also put it in the show notes, etw.com, Edwin Tom Warner.com is the website. And then if people wanted to reach out to you, so is ETW the best place that they can go? Or is there anywhere else you'd like them to reach out to you?
That's a super easy way to reach out to me, or go to LinkedIn and connect.
Okay, cool. Well, Lee, you are awesome. And I wish I had more time. I feel like this could be like 5 shows if we wanted it to be. There's so much wisdom you have to share. But thank you for being here today. And thanks for being so open to sharing things.
Yeah, Tyler, thanks for having me. And I'm happy to come back anytime if your audience can get more value out of this. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee. Take care.
That's all for this episode of Think Business with Tyler. But we have plenty more resources to help you in your pursuit of business excellence on our website at thinktyler.com. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media at think_Tyler. We look forward to helping you think life, think success, and think business.